In December of 1142, a woman wrapped in a thin white cloak was lowered from the walls of Oxford Castle into total darkness. The frozen river Thames cracked beneath her boots as she walked 6 miles through enemy territory in blinding snow while soldiers hunted her. This wasn't even her first escape. She had once been smuggled out of another castle disguised as a corpse. Her name was Empress Matilda, and she fought a 19-year civil war for the English throne. Every English monarch alive today descends from her, and yet almost nobody remembers her name. We were raised on the image of the medieval princess as a delicate girl in a tower, waiting for a prince to climb up and save her. That image is fiction. The towers were real, the confinement was real, but there was no rescue, only a system engineered to use these women up, break their bodies, and quietly erase them from the record. Take Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the most powerful women of the 12th century, imprisoned for 16 years by her own husband, King Henry II. Moved between remote castles specifically so she couldn't interfere with his plans. Joanna of Castile was confined for 46 years, first by her father and later by her own son, both of whom told the world she had lost her mind. Ingeborg of Denmark woke the morning after her wedding in 1193 to find her husband, King Philip II of France, had simply decided he couldn't stand her. He locked her away for the next 20 years while trying to annul the marriage entirely. Life inside that system started long before any wedding, at around 5:30 in the morning, when a young noble girl was expected in a freezing stone chapel for mass, because the church taught that a woman's soul was inherently more fragile and needed extra spiritual cleansing before the day even began. Her education followed: Latin, French, music, dancing, deportment, and the subject drilled into her hardest, full household management, since she was effectively being trained to run an estate of 100 to 150 people, a medieval chief executive who could never resign and never chose her own board. Catherine of Aragon, for instance, was fluent in Latin and had studied Augustine, Seneca, and both civil and canon law by her teenage years. Yet when she arrived in England to marry Prince Arthur, she spoke almost no English at all, because nobody had thought to teach her the language of the country she was being sent to help govern. Her brothers trained with swords, she trained with a loom. And when her husband inevitably rode off to war, she alone was left in charge of defending the entire castle, despite never having received a single lesson in military strategy. Between the years 1000 and 1800, roughly 59,000 men passed through European universities. The number of women who did, 108. Then came marriage itself. Canon law set the minimum marriage age at 12 for girls, and royal families frequently ignored even that. Empress Matilda was married off at 8 years old. Isabella of Valois was 6 when she was sent to England to marry King Richard II. Chroniclers recorded that her trousseau included her favorite dolls, packed alongside the official marriage documents. Perhaps the starkest case is Margaret Beaufort, married at 12, widowed shortly after by plague, and in labor at just 13 years old at Pembroke Castle. Her pelvis was too small for the birth, and her confessor, Bishop John Fisher, later wrote that both mother and child surviving felt like a miracle. Margaret lived, but the damage was so severe she never conceived again. And decades later, as one of the most powerful women in England, she personally warned her own granddaughter against early marriage, writing that it could injure her health if forced too soon. The homes these girls were shipped off to were nothing like fairy tale castles. Walls stayed cold no matter how many fires burned. Floors were covered in reed matting that, mixed with food scraps and spilled ale, became a breeding ground for fleas, lice, and rats, changed maybe once or twice a year. Toilets, called garderobes, were stone chutes draining straight into the moat. Bodiam Castle alone had 28 of them, all emptying into the same water. Fine gowns were actually hung inside these toilet shafts on purpose, since the ammonia fumes rising from urine killed moths and fleas. Contrary to popular belief, medieval nobles bathed regularly in heated water with scented oils and soap. Edward III even installed hot and cold running water at Westminster Palace. And the filthy Middle Ages stereotype actually comes from later centuries, after plague and syphilis convinced people that warm water opened the skin to disease. Beauty came with its own toll. High rounded foreheads were considered aristocratic, so women plucked or burned their hairlines back permanently. Pale skin signaled wealth, achieved with ceresa, a paste of white lid mixed with vinegar, painted onto the face and chest, over time causing skin eruptions, hair loss, rotting teeth, and eventual death. All in the name of looking properly noble. Belladonna drops dilated the pupils for a fashionable wide-eyed look, at the cost of headaches, blurred vision, and sometimes permanent blindness. Meanwhile, a meat-heavy, sugar-rich noble diet caused gout and scurvy severe enough that modern skeletal studies show common peasants often had healthier bones and teeth than the aristocracy that looked down on them. But the real danger was childbirth. Eleanor of Aquitaine, Queen of England in the 13th century, gave birth to 16 children over 25 years of marriage to Edward I. 10 of them died before adulthood, a child mortality rate above 60% inside the royal family itself. Across the medieval period, a noblewoman faced roughly a 1 in 8 lifetime risk of dying in childbirth, and most were expected to endure 8 to 15 pregnancies in a lifetime. Would nurses let aristocratic mothers conceive again within months rather than the natural 2 to 3 years of breastfeeding, meaning noble infants sometimes died at higher rates than peasant babies, since the very privilege meant to protect them accelerated the risk instead. About 6 weeks before delivery, a princess entered confinement in a sealed, darkened room, windows covered, men strictly forbidden entry, with almost no pain relief beyond prayer and birthing girdles believed to carry protective power. The leading killer was puerperal fever, a bacterial infection that could kill within 3 days of delivery, spread partly because midwives moved between laboring women without washing their hands, centuries before anyone understood germs. Even Elizabeth of York, wife of Henry VII and mother of Henry VIII, died of exactly this at age 37. Just days after giving birth in the most luxurious birthing chamber the English crown could provide. And yet these women were never simply victims. Eleanor of Aquitaine, after 16 years imprisoned, emerged near 70 years old to rule as regent for her son Richard the Lionheart, personally raised 150,000 silver marks for his ransom when he was captured, and at nearly 80 crossed the Pyrenees in winter to fetch a bride for her grandson, living to 82 in an age when most people never saw 50. Isabella of France, married at 12 to a husband who humiliated her for years, eventually raised a mercenary army in France, invaded England, and overthrew him. Chroniclers, tellingly, called her the she-wolf of France for it. Empress Matilda never wore the crown herself but secured it for her son, founding the Plantagenet dynasty that would rule England for over 300 years. Anna Komnene, a Byzantine princess confined to a monastery, wrote the Alexiad, a 15-book history of her father's reign in the First Crusade, becoming one of the first women in history to complete a full historical work. The rules governing these women were never consistent. France introduced Selic law in 1316 to permanently bar women from the throne, while Castile allowed female inheritance outright, changing entirely depending on who held the pan. The writer Christine de Pizan put it plainly in 1405, asking why, if women were truly as weak and easily fooled as men claimed, their suitors needed so much trickery just to deceive them. These women weren't waiting for rescue. They were rewriting the rules from inside the very cage built to contain them, a cage made of stone, law, religion, politics, and biology, designed to use them up and erase their names, and one that, again and again, failed to hold.